Hello and welcome back to the Real Music Talks. Today's guest is Florence. She's from the seven-piece band The Bare Souls from Bristol. How you doing, Florence?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Daniel. How you doing?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad at all. I've just been recovering from COVID, so getting there, but I'll try my best today.
Brutal.
So for people that don't know you and have never heard of your band, how would you describe yourself and your involvement in the music industry in general?
Well, the band, like you said, we're a seven-piece. We are sort of cross-genre, I would say. We've got lots of rock and roll influences, lots of blues influences, but I'd say primarily we're sort of a soul band. We're called the Best Soul, so that makes sense. But yeah, lots of soul, a little bit of funk thrown in there as well. In terms of my sort of our involvement in the music industry, I mean, we're a pretty small scale band based in Bristol. We've been doing it sort of off and on for maybe 5 or 6 years in Bristol. Um, but yeah, it's starting to like expand and get into a few more venues sort of around and outside of the city. We were festivaling up until a couple of years ago, so hoping to get back on the festival circuit next year. But yeah, pretty heavily Bristol based at the moment. Yeah.
Makes sense. So talk me through like how it all came about. Maybe if we start back from your own to get into music, and how did that sort of progress from there into you wanting to form this band?
Well, I'm very fortunate to have grown up with a dad with impeccable music taste. So I grew up on ZZ Top and Led Zeppelin and Pink Floyd and lots of excellent rock and roll music, which is still my sort of favorite genre. Um, and I've always been a singer. My mum has said that I was singing before I could talk. So that's always been something I've loved to do, a big part of my life. And I suppose I first picked up the sort of performance side of things when I was at university. Did my first open mic here in Bristol many moons ago, back in 2007, which was absolutely nerve wracking. But I think it went pretty well because I got asked to come back at the weekend and play the best of the open mic slots and got handed 20 quid for my participation in the evening. And that was quite the revelation. Are you actually paying me to do this? Are you serious? And then I spent many, many years as a solo singer-songwriter, just me and my guitar, both here in Bristol, and I lived in Australia for a couple of years. So did a lot of gigging and a lot of busking while I was over in Australia. And discovering new music. I mean, I was big into my R&B and stuff when I was a teenager. So lots of influences from big, powerful female vocalists through that part of my life. And then discovered more of the sort of Motown and old school blues music as I got into my sort of early 20s and really fell in love with the blues and Motown and soul and funk. And that kind of got me to the point where I was getting a bit bored of doing the solo acoustic stuff, because as much as I liked doing the sort of folky, ballady stuff, my guitar playing was never good enough to really play the music that I wanted to sing, which was the blues and rock and roll. And um, yeah, I mean, I loved playing the guitar because it gave me the opportunity to accompany myself and to gig, which I love doing. But I never had the passion to really sit down and become, a really good guitar player. So wanting to make the songs to perform and write songs that I couldn't actually play. And plus, it's a lot more fun playing with other people. Um, brought me to the point of going, right, it's time to put together a band. And I did so the first time around when I was living in Melbourne. And that was the first iteration of the Bare Souls, actually. So there was a four-piece Bare Souls in Melbourne back in like 2000 and maybe 13 or something like that, 2014. And then when I came to Bristol, I started it up again, and yeah, met a bunch of great musicians. We were a six-piece originally back in those days, and yeah, just started gigging out and about on the Bristol music scene. There's been quite a lot of turnover in the lineup of the band since then, as we sort of were trying to find the right people who had the same tastes and the same vibes. And fast forward a few years, and here we are with the dream lineup. So we've now got I've got six incredible musicians with me in the band who are all fully on the money with what they bring to the band and the flavors that they add. And yeah, it's an absolute dream to work with them and bring all those elements of my influences and their influences into the sound that we create.
What was the transition like? So obviously, you know, you start off doing like acoustic singer-songwriter type stuff, and how did your songwriting have to change and kind of mold once you started working with a band? You know, there must have been quite a lot of changes in dynamic. What did that really look like?
I think that was a process of evolution. Like some of the songs that I loved performing as an acoustic solo artist, I sort of put to one side because they weren't the vibe that I wanted to create for the band. And then some of the songs that I had started to carve out that I could just about pull off on the guitar, but probably wouldn't perform live as a solo artist, just because they were kind of rock songs, and it doesn't really work with me just sort of strumming away bar chords to try and make that vibe. But I'm not hugely like musically literate. A lot of my the songs that I write, I took them to the band, and in the first instance, and they're all kind of chatting to each other, going, "What key is this in? This makes absolutely no sense. Why are these chords in like the same song?" And I'm like, "But it sounds good, right?" And they're like, "It sounds great, but it doesn't make any sense." so, so that's quite interesting to discover that you're sort of, not having that musical literacy means that you're kind of creating something a bit off the wall, a bit different. But then as time's gone on, the sort of writing process is a bit different. Like, I might go along with some vague chords, and then the guys all start talking about, "Oh no, this should be like a suspended augmented in Dorian keys," and I'm like, "I have absolutely no idea what you're talking about, but it sounds great." So they sort of carve them a little bit more, refine them a little bit more. And then sometimes I might just have a vocal melody, and like an idea of what I want the horns to do, and just like an overall kind of like concept in my head for what I want the song to sound like. And then the guys will just kind of craft it from there and add all these fantastic little flavors and elements of their own. So it's getting to that kind of really nice collaborative stage where everyone sort of, we've been working together long enough that everyone gets the sound and gets the vibe, and like they know what the Bare Soul sounds like. Because there was a time when we were writing songs together and someone would play like a fantastic bass line, for example, and I'm like, "I love that bass line, it's great, but it's not the Bare Souls." So it's sort of trying to keep that on track, even though we are quite, I'd say, quite like genre spanning, and we've got quite a lot of different flavors throughout our set. I think there's still quite a strong identity within the band of what we sound like and what we're trying to bring to the stage.
So, like, as a band, have you kind of crafted that identity over time then? And then you're just trying to make everything else fit within that? Like, how has that sort of perspired over time?
Um, I think like there's definitely a large part of our sound is my influence and my sort of musical background, because I kind of do lead the band. It is sort of started as my sort of project, and it's definitely evolving into more of a co-owned project, which I really want it to be. I'd like it to be more of a collaborative thing rather than just my flavor and sound. But it is starting to, yeah. I mean, I think that's the thing though, is that I found the musicians that are on the same page. So even though they might play in other bands that like play a lot more kind of funk music, for example, when they're with the Bare Souls, they bring out that sort of blues like element of their playing, and we all really get it. We all really kind of know what we want the sound to be. But at the same time, it's always evolving. Um, we've got some new songs which are doing some things that are really quite different to what we've done before, with some like really interesting sort of like dynamic musical breakdowns and interludes, and stuff like that. So becoming a little bit more experimental, trying to move away from the prescriptive like verse chorus break solo chorus like format that a lot of songs sort of naturally fall into. But yeah, it's great. Like I say, we've got like of quite a few new songs on our set list, and they've all got different flavors to them. And so it's really fun to see how that sort of evolving and expanding. Yeah.
So I'm just going to take it back a little bit. So, when you were talking about you're not necessarily like musically trained, how did you kind of learn to sing and pick up the guitar? And do you tend to sort of take the bare bones melody to the band?
I guess it would be unfair to say I'm not musically trained at all, in that like I've had singing lessons on and off through my life. I did some piano when I was a kid. So like I went to a school that had like a really strong music department. So I've definitely like had some training on that side. I'm not like up to scratch with the theory stuff. I think I started doing a bit of musical theory when I was learning piano, and I was like, I'm not into this. This is boring. I just want to play stuff and sing it. Now I regret that decision. I'd love to have more of an understanding of the musical theory. But yeah, I've had singing training on and off over the years, and that's been a huge part of like my voice. I think it's really amazing how much you can learn from about the instrument of the voice. You know, a lot of people don't necessarily think about the voice as an instrument, but it's got to be like the most complex instrument there is. You know, there's like hundreds of muscles involved. And I had a really great teacher called Ruth Royal, who's a fantastic singer based in Bristol. She teaches anatomy-based singing, and that's all about really learning what your body's doing and like how to produce those sounds by understanding what muscles are involved and what the like anatomical processes of producing a note, which is fascinating and massively improved my singing. And as for the guitar, my dad taught me a bit, but I was pretty much self-taught on the guitar. But yeah, as I say, not hugely proficient at it, especially it's all got very rusty these days. And when I sing, I put in every single ounce of energy I have in my body into singing and performing. And trying to do the guitar at the same time just detracts from what I can put into my voice for me. So I like to put the guitar down, leave that to someone far more talented on the guitar than I am, and just let rip on the vocals.
Makes sense. I mean, for me, it's the opposite, right? So I'm a drummer, and I've tried to sing, and I'm awful at it. So I'd rather stick to playing drums and just focus on that.
Gotta stick to what we're good at, eh? Know your strengths.
But what you said there about the autonomy of singing, that's really interesting. A lot of people don't think of it like that, because I guess, you know, you're a human, you're a real thing. Your voice is never exactly the same on any given time or day. Do you know what I mean? It can vary so much. So learn to control that.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. And a lot of people don't even go there.
Yeah, and like you say, your voice is always different on different days, and it's so rare that you're like at 100% every time you like whenever you play a show. So it's also knowing um like how to deal with like having a bit of a cough or a bit of a scratchy throat. Or I did a gig once when I had full blown tonsillitis because I couldn't cancel it. So it's knowing how to like work around that. And yeah, I mean, I find it fascinating that pretty much the best thing you can do pre singing is stretch. Like just really loosening up the muscles is definitely the best thing for getting the most out of your voice when you come to perform.
Yeah, it makes sense. That's a good tip for everyone to kind of take into consideration. So for your band, talk to me about the recording process. You know, like when you're actually going to put out music, what does that look like? So you started writing the songs, you've got together, you've got it ready, then you hit the studio. What does that look like from there?
We've done it differently, I suppose, the few times that we've done it. We did our first EP was a full studio recorded EP, and that was, God, I think that was back in like 2016, and we did that with Music Ape, who are a wicked group of guys based up on Gloucester Road. Actually, I think they've moved now, but they were up there. And that was really fun process. And yeah, like my first sort of time doing a full band EP. And I don't think we did it live or anything. It was all sort of, you know, tracked instrument by instrument. And then the second EP we kind of did it a bit more on a budget. So we went and did, you know, the bass and guitar in a separate studio. And then the guitarist we had playing with us at the time, who is now bassist in Waldo's Gift, who are a fantastic Bristol bass band. He did the sort of production from there, so we sort of recorded all the other bits just ad hoc at home, and produced an EP that way. But then I actually revisited it a kind of year or so later and got it remixed a little bit by Ben Capp, who's also got a great studio in the centre of town. So just kind of wanted to revisit it and just polish it up a little bit because it did feel a little bit like home produced. We also did a couple of singles with Ben, which were all live singles, which we recorded live videos to as well. So that was like a full live band performance. And then we did a little bit of overdubbing on a few bits. But that was a really fun process and really good to get the videos out of that. And then we've just about to release a new single early next year. And this one sort of started out as a bedroom kind of lockdown recording project, and then we've been doing the rest with a guy called Aaron, who runs a little production company called AZ Studios, I think it is. And he's great. So we just sort of recorded the guitar and the horns and the vocals with him over the top of what was already down. And the keys, and then he's like mixing it, producing it, and it's starting to sound pretty fat. So we're really excited to get that out because that's a really rocking tune. And we're going to be doing a music video for that as well, which is really fun because we've not actually done a full narrative, like proper music video yet. So I'm excited to release that in the new year. But I really like to be in the studio when we're recording, like between us, we've got good ears for what's right and what's wrong and where things should be sitting and how the levels should be sounding. So yeah, it's really fun to sort of sit down with a producer and really kind of craft that sound and really find what you want from it.
I rarely ask this, but I'm going to go for it. So what sort of struggles and difficulties have you had personally as a musician, and also with the band? Could you talk a little bit, maybe a couple of examples of difficult times you faced?
Yeah, I mean, I think the music industry is pretty difficult and it can be really disheartening a lot of the time. It's really difficult because we're as a 7-piece band because like A, it's hard to organize, and B, it's really hard to get paid enough money. You know, a lot of venues in Bristol will pay like 250 quid a gig, and the 7 of us. And like I've said to the guys, like, we won't gig for less than 50 quid each, or at least I'm going to, sometimes it might be 40, but I'm going to try and make sure that every time we play, you will get 50 quid. So often I don't take anything like from what we get paid. And, I've got a full-time job and being a musician is not my career. And trying to do all the promotion, the social media, I mean, I hate all that stuff like most musicians do. I don't like self-promotion at the best of times, and then trying to build a social media following is just really not what I want to be doing with my time. But it's so important in the music industry these days. A lot of like festivals and venues, unless you've got X number of followers, they won't book you. So that was really frustrating. And you play gigs and you just get this fantastic feedback and people are, really enthusing about the sound that you make and what you do. But just having, it's a full-time job managing a band, or it can be. So knowing how to promote yourself, knowing how to approach booking agents and promoters and venues and festivals, and doing all of the, being your own booking agent, your own manager, your own promoter, your own, all of these things. It's just more than I've got time for, and it's not my skill set. So that's really frustrating. Because I think we make a really good sound, and I think we're a really great live band. So it sort of feels like after so many years playing the Bristol music scene, we want to be doing some more, playing further afield and doing some bigger gigs. So it can be a bit of a struggle to know how to break through when you're trying to do everything yourself.
I mean, I can definitely speak to what you're saying in terms of the sort of challenges that venues and that have faced, especially with like COVID and that. I mean, I was looking at putting on my first gig not too long ago, and what surprised me the most is that the base fees that venues actually charge to hire out the venue already makes it very difficult. And then I wasn't even trying to make any money out of it myself. I just wanted to put on the bands, but even getting enough money in to pay the bands was quite difficult. So there's got to be some sort of change, I think, in the industry to kind of, I would look at it as, think about how we can redistribute the pie more fairly, like who's getting the most money. I saw some stat the other day that the CEO of Universal Music got paid more than all the streams that artists got on Spotify in 2019, and I thought that was ridiculous.
I saw that as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Yeah, I mean, it's the same across society, the massive distribution and the quality of distribution of wealth. But yeah, there's something fundamentally broken with the music industry and how it's working, and how much artists of all kinds are undervalued by society. And we saw that in COVID. There was lots of things popping up. With the Fatima's doesn't know that her future's in what was it, in tech or whatever. Do you remember seeing that? The ballet dancer, and it's just the unbelievable disrespect for the contribution that art makes to the richness of our lives, and art is what makes life worth living, really, isn't it? Like, what would life be without music? And the fact that most musicians are just constantly struggling to have any sort of financial security, just sort of shows the fundamental lack of equality and recognition of that as an important part of life. I mean, there's also another great little sort of meme that goes around once in a while of someone quoting for a wedding band, for a 5-piece band for a wedding set, and the woman going, "How much you really think? What, you just come and play music for a couple of hours?" And the musician says, "Well, why don't you call up 5 plumbers and ask them to all come round your house for 5 hours and see how much that adds up to?" It's just that, yeah, that lack of valuing of music and what it brings to our lives. And yeah, like you say, with the streaming thing, now most artists can't make money off releasing music and selling music, so it's all about performance and about merch. And yeah, when venues are struggling to pay their artists, then where's the money coming from?
No, agreed. And I don't meet many musicians that say like my goal is to be rich and famous. If I can make enough money to live off my art, that is literally like amazing. Um, so I think like it's not like they're asking for a lot. And if you spend 20 years sort of mastering your craft, right, you'd expect there to be more of a reward for it. Because if you do
Yeah.
that in a business environment, you spend 20 years being a master of a career, you do get rewarded for it like 9 times out of 10. So yeah, it
Mm.
does feel a little bit unfair. And I just wonder, like, what's the way forward? What's your thoughts on that? Where do you see the solution being?
That's a big question, Daniel. I don't know. I haven't really given it enough thought. I mean, I imagine there's got to be something in the streaming thing. Like, that's got to be. I use Spotify. I love Spotify, and I feel bad about using Spotify, but it's just so good as a service for someone who loves music, but it's awful as a service for someone who's making music. So there needs to be better laws and legislations around how those streaming services pay their artists. And I don't know. I think probably there's something in the government putting more investment into the arts, and trying to and recognizing the value that music venues and arts actually bring to the economy. If we've got a really great music scene here, and if that can be recognized as part of the attraction of tourism or the hospitality industry, then there's definitely reason to invest in that, and reason to make sure that we don't just lose music and musicians because no one can actually afford to entertain it as a serious career, apart from the ones who do want to be rich and famous, and who are going down like the complete commercial route and are essentially just creating products rather than creating feelings and like actual emotive genuine music. They're just creating pop songs, which I mean, I used to think Ed Sheeran was not my type of music, but like a really respectable musician. But he's not even trying anymore, I don't think. He's just pumping them out. Someone asked him what his latest song was about, and he's like, I don't know, nothing really. It's just like, what? That's not right, Ed, come on. So yeah, I think I don't know. I don't have the answers, Daniel, but yeah, please send them on a postcard if you have.
No, it's interesting. Obviously, we could talk about that sort of thing for a long time, right? But we'll sort of leave that there. So, for your band, what is kind of the plan from here? Obviously, we've just had COVID. Maybe talk a little bit about the struggles you've had over lockdown and how that's affected the group.
Um, to be honest, other than like not getting to play and perform, You know, that sucked, but we did a bit of writing, we did a little bit of rehearsing when we could. I guess the main thing that was really rubbish for us was that we had quite a lot of really good festivals booked in 2019, and for the most part, those don't seem to have rolled over for us. So whether it's just that at that point in 2019, we were just on the radar of a few people who were putting on stages and festivals, etc. And then since then, you know, a year and a half later, we've sort of fallen off their radar. So it's a shame that we missed those opportunities at the time. So it's trying to, you know, now it's time to be applying to festivals. So again, you know, I've got a full-time job, so it's trying to find the time to do all that sort of stuff, because it's a lot of work writing all those applications. So that was a shame to have missed those opportunities. But now, yeah, I mean, the plan is to try and ride this little wave. We've had 2 gigs over the last few months, which have just been amazing. Like, we've just had such good feedback from people who've come to see us live and people who've never seen us live. And we got a really great review from our show at Mr. Wolf's on Saturday from the Bristol Gig Guide. So it's just trying to keep that energy up, and get more people along to our upcoming shows, book more shows next year, and yeah, try and get onto some of those festival stages as well. So yeah, that's the plan. Try and be a little bit more tactical about it, and get in touch with some management agencies and see if we can get them along to watch some shows, and hopefully get someone excited about what we do who can take all the administrative tedium off my hands.
I think that's a good point, though. So, like, obviously, like we said, you know, most musicians are working a job as well as doing their music. How do you balance your time between the two?
I've got a 9 to 5, 5-day a week job. So that's, you know, that's when I do that, and then I try and do the rest of it just in my spare time, evenings and weekends. And some of it I don't mind. You know, I quite enjoy designing posters and having a little play on Photoshop and doing that sort of stuff. And I obviously love rehearsing, and it's so that's part of things is so much fun. But yeah, just sort of finding the time as and when you can. It's generally like Saturday and Sunday mornings when I'm a bit hungover, sat in bed, that I do most of it.
Makes sense. I mean, that's the ideal time to do that kind of stuff, right? To be fair. So we're nearly actually out of time now. It's been really great chatting. Really do appreciate it. But sort of as we close out, is there anything else you'd like to leave the audience with?
Yeah, I mean, I hope well, firstly, check out our music, and we're on Spotify, The Bare Souls, so it's BARESOULS. Like I said earlier, it really does make a big difference if you can give us a follow on Instagram or Facebook, as much as that's not what it's about. But first, listen to the music. If you like it, give us a follow. And please, please, please come see us live, because that is who we are and that is what we do. You know, there's so much you can get out of our recorded tracks, but we are all about the live show. We put in so much passion and energy into what we do, and I think you'll really like it. And we're playing at the Bell in Bath on the 24th of November. I'm not sure when this podcast is going out, but if you're around this area, come and check us out. Then the next day on the 25th, we're at this wicked little inn called the Sheppey Inn, which is in Godney, just outside of Glastonbury. And then on the 4th of December, we're playing at Number 1 Harbourside. And then we've got our big single release, big gig in February next year, on the 12th, at the Canteen in Bristol. So those are your chances to come and see us, and I hope to see you out there at some point.
Awesome. Yeah, sounds great. Thanks for your time, Florence. It's been great chatting.
Thanks so much, Daniel. Thanks for having me on. Take care.
Appreciate your time. Thanks for watching, everyone. See you next time.